The air didn't just feel thick. It was suffocating, charged with animal adrenaline and raw human terror. Look into her eyes, a teenage girl frozen in the center of a dusty training field, framed by the rigid defensive postures of 14 highly trained police canines. They weren't growling, not yet. That was the terrifying part. Their silence, their absolute focus, their readiness. A single sharp noise, a burst balloon of all things, had ripped the fabric of control, leaving her isolated and vulnerable. You watch, heart pounding, as their handlers strain against their leashes, unable to break the collective instinctual containment. What happens? Next hinges on a single impossible choice, a move that could either escalate the crisis into catastrophe or perhaps invite an unseen, extraordinary intervention. Stay with us, because the true meaning of courage is about to walk into this nightmare. Imagine the scene, the county fair, a tapestry of joy and noise, the smell of funnel cake mixing with the distant rumble of the Ferris wheel. Everything feels safe, predictable, bathed in the late afternoon sun. This is the moment where normalcy holds you tightly, comforting you with its routine chaos. But sometimes life reminds us that true chaos is only one sudden sound away, waiting for the perfect instant to rip the illusion of safety wide open, transforming a cheerful gathering into a potential disaster zone in the blink of an eye, requiring immediate and decisive action. She was just looking for the exit, maybe distracted by a text message or the vibrant lights of the next ride, perhaps losing track of her surroundings entirely. She drifted, unaware of the thin, invisible boundary marking the highly specialized police K9 training demonstration area, a place governed by discipline and razor-sharp instinct, not casual wandering. Her teenage curiosity led her just a few steps too close to the perimeter, where 14 highly trained law enforcement dogs were rotating through intensive, high-stress drills, dogs bred and conditioned for immediate response and unwavering duty under pressure. Then it happened. Not a warning siren, not a distant bang, but the sharp, shockingly violent pop of an oversized novelty balloon exploding under the foot of a distracted toddler far down the midway, the sound amplified by the open space. This single acoustic shockwave cut through the general background noise like a gunshot, instantaneous and piercing. In that specific, highly charged environment designed to test the limits of canine control, that sound was the crucial trigger mechanism for 14 finely tuned instruments of protection, instantly overriding hours of disciplined conditioning and demanding an immediate, defensive reaction. The transformation was terrifyingly immediate. One moment, they were focused assets responding to handler cues. The next, they were pure defensive instinct. Several of the canines snapped their heads up, their bodies coiling, muscles tightening like steel cables under sleek fur. Their professional alertness instantly shifted to high-grade threat assessment, and they locked onto the nearest non-authorized movement, the girl. If you find yourself drawn to these rare moments where human vulnerability meets powerful animal instinct, where true character is revealed under pressure and miracles unfold unexpectedly, please consider subscribing. Joining our community ensures you never miss these incredible stories of transformation and deep, unexpected connections that truly define the human and animal spirit. The handlers, expert professionals who live and breathe control, reacted instantly, their practiced commands sharp and urgent, trying desperately to recall their dogs. They strained against the leashes, shouting familiar cues meant to override the primal response, but the sheer number and intensity of the stimuli overwhelmed their immediate ability to control the situation. 14 minds, previously focused on the training objectives and their trusted trainers, now focused on the perceived threat. The sharp noise, the sudden intrusion, the vulnerable target, frozen motionless in their periphery. Instinct took over, the ancient pack dynamic asserting itself in a terrifying display of coordinated response that transcended individual obedience. They didn't run away. They converged, not in a disorganized mass, but in a deliberate, chillingly effective semicircle. This formation, learned in advanced defensive training but executed purely by overwhelming instinct, was designed to isolate, contain, and deny any avenue of escape. The girl was now completely encircled, the exit routes sealed off. by rigid bodies and intensely fixed gazes, leaving her nowhere to turn and nowhere to run from the unfolding immediate danger. Imagine the paralyzing dread that seized her, that cold, heavy weight that drops into your stomach when your body realizes it's in mortal danger, long before your brain catches up to formulate a rational plan. Her teenage certainty vanished, replaced by a pure, animal terror that locked her down completely. Every muscle fiber seized up. Her legs were rooted to the ground, incapable of initiating the vital flight response that screamed inside her mind. The breath she tried to take caught painfully in her throat, a shallow, desperate gulp of air that seemed far too loud in the sudden, concentrated silence of the demonstration field. Look closer at the dogs. These were not playful pets. They were hardened police canines, built for duty, apprehension, and intense intimidation. Their tails were low or entirely motionless, serving as silent gauges of their alertness. Their ears were pricked forward, gathering every subtle sound, every whisper of movement from the trapped teenager. The posture was rigid, highly defensive, yet strangely disciplined. They weren't attacking yet, but they were perfectly poised to do so, waiting for the one wrong move, the slight tilt of the head, the panicked step that would confirm their initial assessment of her as a true and immediate threat. The vibrant general noise of the fair now felt muted, pushed back to the edges of reality by the sheer intensity of the concentrated conflict unfolding in the center of the arena. It was as if a localized sound vacuum had descended upon that specific patch of dirt, transforming the scene into a frightening tableau of suspense. Spectators were frozen mid-action, witnessing the impossible vulnerability of a young human being caught in the crosshairs of disciplined, instinctual force. The air crackled with palpable, suffocating tension, every second stretching out into an eternity of silent, terrifying confrontation that seemed impossible to break without incident. This wasn't merely a tense standoff, it was a ticking clock governed by volatile instincts. The dogs were primed to react based on movement and, critically, fear pheromones, and the girl was radiating both in abundance. Her fear was a physical signal, a scent amplified by the rigid bodies surrounding her. Any sudden noise, any slightly mistimed attempt by the handlers to force an intervention, or even a single misguided flinch from the girl herself, could trigger a devastating collective reaction. It forces you to consider the immense dual-edged power held in these working animals, tools of safety that, under extreme duress, can instantly become the source of profound danger. Their training is designed for absolute obedience and fearless protection, yet that same intensity, when misdirected by a random external stimulus, creates this harrowing paradox. The handlers watched, knowing that their own carefully cultivated bond with their animals was currently superseded by a primal collective instinct they could only hope to slow, but not instantaneously or safely reverse, without external aid. The situation was clearly beyond the handlers' immediate ability to resolve peacefully. The tension was too high, the concentration of fear too thick for simple commands to overcome. 14 dogs, locked into alert mode, were dominating the scene, demanding a definitive answer to the threat they perceived. Everyone watching understood that the solution would not come from louder commands or more aggressive pulling on the leashes. It would require something completely different. A singular authoritative presence, an unexpected disruptor capable of cutting through the rigid fear, an element of serene calm that was about to make its silent, pivotal entrance. The world had narrowed down to the rough dirt beneath her sneakers and the ring of predatory focus encircling her. You can feel the involuntary, rapid flutter in her chest, the desperate attempts to control her own breathing, knowing that even a deep inhale might be interpreted as a preparatory movement, a trigger for an unstoppable response. The intense, unblinking focus of the dogs was the most terrifying aspect. They were not reacting wildly, but assessing with cold, professional precision, gathering data from her fear scent, the tension in her muscles, and the terrified, erratic darting of her gaze. Her survival. Instinct warred violently with every rational thought remaining in her mind. Should she remain absolutely still, hoping that rigidity would communicate subservience and passivity, or should she attempt a slow, measured step back, testing the perimeter for a weakness that likely did not exist? Every action felt like an ultimate gamble, the stakes impossibly high, measured not in money or time, but in instantaneous consequences. She lifted her hands slightly, palms open, an involuntary ancient gesture of surrender that felt meaningless against the wall of disciplined instinct. This wasn't just physical danger, it was an acute psychological trap, being watched. With such intensity by so many focused, powerful animals, generates a paralyzing feedback loop. The fear fuels the dog's alert status, and the dog's increasing rigidity amplifies her terror. The human brain, designed to analyze and strategize, short-circuits in the face of such absolute, undeniable threat. She wasn't seeing 14 individuals, she was seeing one cohesive, silent, waiting entity of force, and that entity demanded absolute stillness from its captive. The general uproar of the county fair, the joyous screams from the rides, the cheerful calls of vendors, all the background noise that defined the day's festive atmosphere, began to recede, muffled and distant, as if filtered through a heavy sheet of glass. This strange, isolating silence descended specifically upon the demonstration field, a profound shift in acoustic reality. It wasn't truly quiet outside the circle, but inside her experience, the surrounding clamor simply ceased to matter, completely eclipsed by the immediate, overwhelming tension and the silence of the waiting canines. Across the vast, open arena, the human crowd noticed the anomaly. They didn't hear a fight or a sudden burst of activity. They noticed the unnatural stillness of the handlers, their strained, desperate postures, and the frighteningly rigid formation of the 14 dogs. Spectators stopped their wanderings mid-stride, frozen by the visible disruption in the pattern of the day, their heads turning in unison toward the center ring. They became a silent audience to a potential tragedy, their collective awareness sensing the incredibly delicate, fragile thread, holding the moment together, afraid to breathe too loudly themselves. The scene wasn't just static, it was vibrating with held energy, a moment stretched taut between two inevitable outcomes. The handlers, highly trained individuals accustomed to controlling volatile situations, were now reduced to desperate, internal pleas, their voices strained and their hands aching from the pressure on the leashes. They knew the danger of trying to physically pull the dogs away from a perceived threat, risking an immediate snap reaction. They were trapped, forced into a holding pattern, waiting for a commanding figure or a radical change in the situation to break the unbearable deadlock. You might feel a wave of helplessness watching this scenario unfold, recognizing the universal human experience of being utterly exposed and completely unable to control the forces arrayed against you. This is the truth about vulnerability. It strips away all pretense of certainty, leaving only the stark realization that sometimes the world demands an intervention far beyond your own capabilities. The training field, moments ago a place of professional demonstration, was now a frightening chamber of held breath, the air thick with potential violence, waiting only for a catalyst. She could feel the heat radiating from the closest dogs, the subtle shifts in their weight as they maintained their aggressive stance, their noses twitching slightly as they analyzed her scent profile, a mix of fear, sweat, and adrenaline. Every sensory input screamed danger, yet she forced herself to maintain the unnatural stillness, believing, perhaps mistakenly, that movement meant immediate escalation. Her mind was frantically scanning the distance for help, searching for a face that seemed in control, a figure that held the authority to command the uncommandable. The handlers, despite their best efforts, were losing ground, not physically, but psychologically. Their frustration mounted as their practiced commands met resistance from their own animals' ingrained defense mechanisms. This rare failure of absolute obedience was a testament to the power of the primal trigger. The sharp sound had activated a deeper collective identity within the pack, momentarily eclipsing the human established authority structures. They understood the terrifying calculus of the situation better than anyone. The longer the standoff lasted, the higher the risk of accidental discharge. Consider the terrifying irony. These were the animals meant to protect the community, now inadvertently posing the greatest threat to an innocent member of that community simply because of a random accident. This paradox underscored the raw, untamed power underlying even the most domesticated and trained creatures. They were magnificent, terrifying in their efficiency, and completely unforgiving of intrusion, forcing the girl to confront the raw, unpolished nature of survival itself. Just as the silence felt like it would shatter into violence, a new element was introduced into the periphery. A disturbance, subtle yet authoritative, was beginning to move through the background chaos. It wasn't the frantic energy of a panicked handler or the strained movement of a spectator pushing too close. It was something measured, deliberate, and powerfully calm. A disruption of serenity introduced into the heart of the storm. The spectators and the girl, locked in their respective states of terror and helplessness, were about to witness a shift in the hierarchy, an external force that bypassed the chaos entirely. A figure of authority was moving, and crucially, an unusual, imposing K9 was moving with him, approaching the standoff not with haste, but with a profound, almost philosophical stillness that promised an entirely new direction for the unfolding, terrifying narrative. Across the dizzying expanse of the arena, maintaining a professional distance, but never truly disconnected from the pulse of his field operations, the county sheriff noticed the sudden, profound disturbance. He didn't need binoculars or a detailed report. The unnatural silence radiating from the training demonstration area spoke volumes about the critical nature of the situation unfolding. His eyes, trained by decades of crisis management and threat assessment, immediately registered the rigid formation of the 14 K9s and the trapped solitary figure in their center. He knew instantaneously that traditional force or loud commands would only exacerbate the volatile situation, requiring an intervention that was as unconventional as it was precise. His gaze dropped to the powerful, calm presence standing patiently beside him, Valor. Valor was not just a dog. He was an institution, a seasoned K9 whose reputation preceded him, known not primarily for his bite strength or tracking skills, though he possessed them in abundance, but for his profoundly unusual, almost therapeutic intuition. Valor specialized in de-escalation, a silent expert in reading the subtle cues of human anxiety and canine tension, a rarity in the high-stakes world of law enforcement canine units where aggression often took precedence over empathy. Without a word, the sheriff gave the release command, a silent gesture, a subtle shift in posture that Valor understood perfectly. Valor moved immediately, yet his movement was strikingly different from the hurried, panicked energy surrounding the crisis zone. He approached the volatile situation slowly, deliberately, his pace measured and profoundly unhurried, as if he were taking a casual stroll through a quiet park rather than walking into a 14-dog, high-tension standoff where the slightest misstep could result in immediate violence. The most crucial difference in Valor's approach was his vector. He wasn't running toward the aggressive, rigid semicircle of canines, attempting to challenge their immediate authority or break their formation. Instead, he moved directly, yet subtly, toward the heart of the tension, the frozen girl. His focus was entirely on the human element of the crisis, bypassing the canine confrontation entirely, seeking to neutralize the fear and anxiety that was fueling the entire destructive dynamic, understanding instinctively that the girl's terror was the key source of the dog's continued alert status. His posture communicated absolute, profound serenity. Valor's body was visibly loose, lacking the coiled tension that defined the surrounding canines. His powerful tail, instead of being tucked low or held rigidly, maintained a slow, relaxed, almost hypnotic sway, a perfect contrast to the surrounding stiffness. His eyes, usually sharp and penetrating during active duty, were soft, conveying a complete lack of aggression or concern, radiating a quiet confidence that seemed to defy the immediate reality of the danger surrounding them all. As Valor began his calculated, slow approach, the surrounding tension did something remarkable. It shifted, not lessened, but rearranged itself under the pressure of his unwavering calm. The aggressive canines noticed him immediately, an incoming peer, a highly ranked dog, yet one whose posture seemed utterly confused by the current situation. They hesitated, their rigid attention momentarily broken, unsure how to classify this unexpected, serene intruder who seemed to operate outside the established rules of the current defensive formation. Valor's presence introduced an immediate cognitive dissonance into the pack's instinctual focus. They were wired for confrontation and threat assessment, yet here was a powerful, authoritative peer exhibiting none of the expected signs of conflict or alarm. This moment of canine confusion was the critical opening, a small window of opportunity created solely by Valor's psychological authority and unshakable demeanor, forcing the other canines to momentarily question the validity of their current, absolute alert status and reassess the new data. With every measured step Valor took, the fear that had been so thick, so palpable in the arena began to fracture. The girl, still trapped but now keenly aware of the slow, deliberate approach of the massive yet non-threatening dog, focused her laser-like attention on his soft, approaching eyes. He was not challenging her. He was not threatening her. He was simply moving with an authority that seemed to communicate, "This situation is manageable, you are safe." The sight of the sheriff's canine operating with such stark, unconventional calm was a lesson in non-confrontational leadership, a quiet demonstration of power through composure rather than aggression. This was a technique rooted in trust and intuition, a testament to the specialized bond Valor shared with his handler, allowing him the latitude to interpret and manage complex human and animal emotions without needing explicit moment-to-moment commands. He continued his measured approach, closing the terrifying gap between the rigid semicircle and the petrified girl. The handlers, seeing the sheriff's tacit authorization and the immediate calming effect of Valor's presence on their own dogs, who were now less rigid, less intensely focused, began to relax their desperate grips, understanding that the crisis was pivoting in a new, hopeful direction thanks to this unexpected silent diplomat. The moment Valor arrived at the perimeter of the semicircle, the intensity of the standoff reached its zenith before its inevitable dissolution. He was about to perform the single crucial action that would redefine the confrontation, an act of silent physical guardianship that would fundamentally change the girl's psychological reality and, consequently, dismantle the entire defensive posture of the surrounding canines. The true power of empathy was about to be unleashed in the most physical, undeniable way. Valor didn't hesitate when he reached the girl's trembling feet. There was no aggressive movement, no warning signal, just the quiet, powerful commitment to his mission of peace. With the precision of a trained guard, yet the gentle posture of a trusted confidant, Valor sat down directly in front of her. This single action was profoundly significant. By placing himself between the girl and the tense semicircle of canines, he was physically and psychologically asserting dominance over the space, effectively declaring the area safe and the threat neutralized, all through the silent language of canine authority. The immediate effect on the girl was stunning to witness. She had been staring into a terrifying vortex of fear, and suddenly, a massive yet calm shield appeared, blocking her from the focused intensity of the other dogs. Valor, now a warm, protective physical barrier, disrupted the visual and psychological connection between her terror and their alertness. You could practically see the internal pressure gauge dropping within her, the fear momentarily replaced by profound confusion, then swiftly transitioning into sheer, overwhelming relief that grounded her volatile emotions. Then came the physical connection, the true act of grounding. Valor, a dog bred for strength and command, performed the gentlest of gestures. He leaned his head, heavy and warm, against her leg. This contact was revolutionary. Her body, coiled tight with terror just moments before, now registered a weight of absolute non-judgmental stability. Her trembling began to subside almost instantaneously, her rigid shoulders lowered visibly, releasing tension that had held her captive. Her breath, which had been shallow and frantic, deepened, becoming more regular, mirroring the rhythmic, steady exhale of the dog beside her. Her response was pure, instinctive humanity. Her hand, previously hovering in the air in a gesture of helplessness, dropped slowly, unerringly, until her fingers found purchase in Valor's thick, protective fur. She didn't consciously decide to pet him. Her hand simply clung to the unexpected anchor of safety, burying her fingers deep into the solid warmth of his coat. This small, visceral connection was the turning point, transforming the environment from one of external threat to one of intimate, immediate sanctuary, facilitated entirely by the dog's calm presence. The ripple effect of Valor's serene composure extended outwards, challenging the very foundation of the canine's defensive formation. The remarkable calm radiating from Valor was like a powerful silent broadcast, overriding the frantic signals of the girl's fear. The surrounding police dogs, still tense, began to show visible signs of confusion and de-escalation. Their ears softened, their rigid focus wavered. They were receiving conflicting data. Their protective instinct screamed threat, but Valor, their authoritative, calm peer, communicated absolute peace. Do you remember a time when a simple, unexpected act of kindness or calm utterly transformed a terrifying moment for you? Share your story in the comments below. One by one, the canines began to break formation, not through forced retraction by their handlers, but through a voluntary, subtle shifting of focus. The sheer overwhelming consensus of danger was dissolving. The handlers, reading the cues perfectly, seized this opportunity to gently reassert control. With soft, steady commands, they guided their now slightly bewildered dogs backward, pulling them away from the immediate perimeter of the now calm centerpiece, the girl and Valor, re-establishing the critical human-animal connection that had been temporarily severed by the balloon pop. The retreat of the 14 dogs was gradual, disciplined, and deeply symbolic. It wasn't a failure. It was a testament to the fact that even the most ingrained instinct can be moderated by a superior, non-aggressive authority figure. As the semicircle widened and the last rigid stance dissolved, the full, crushing weight of the moment passed, leaving behind a profound sense of shared astonishment among the handlers and the audience. They had just witnessed not an escape but a psychological de-escalation performed by a dog who understood the power of presence. The girl, however, remained exactly where she was, her fear replaced by a fierce, dependent grip on Valor. He had become her lifeline, the steady pulse in the midst of a silent scream. She was now kneeling slightly, her head bowed, resting against the comforting warmth of his side, no longer looking outward at the danger, but finding profound sanctuary within the massive form beside her. This position spoke volumes. The trauma of the encirclement was over, but the need for immediate unconditional safety was still overwhelming and necessary. The sheriff, who had maintained a respectful distance, allowing Valor the necessary space and time to execute his unique mission, now began to approach. He moved slowly, deliberately, careful not to reintroduce any element of haste or alarm that might shatter the fragile peace Valor had so expertly established. He wasn't rushing toward a victim or a perp. He was approaching a profoundly shaken person, finding solace in the most unexpected of protectors. What the sheriff was about to explain to the girl and to the astonished crowd would reveal the intentionality behind Valor's specialized training, a training that went far beyond typical police work. It would reveal a profound understanding of the deep, often overlooked connection between fear, control, and the surprising power of empathy when applied in high-stakes environments, setting the stage for the final, awe-inspiring realization. The moment of crisis had ended, but the lesson was just beginning. The crowd watched, silent and transfixed, awaiting the explanation that would make sense of this extraordinary intervention, eager to understand the nature of the bond between this unique canine and his sheriff and what it meant for the future of compassionate law enforcement. As the handlers systematically collected their still disoriented canines, guiding them away from the now calm center of the arena, the sheriff finally closed the distance. He found the girl exactly where Valor had left her, kneeling in the dirt, her body language completely transformed from paralysis to profound relief. Her fingers were tightly curled, into Valor's coat, a desperate, instinctive clutch that spoke volumes about the immediate terror she had faced and the absolute safety she currently felt. She was using his warmth, his solidity, as an anchor to ground herself back into reality. The crowd maintained its astonished, hushed vigil. They watched the sheriff approach, not with the formality of an officer investigating an incident, but with the quiet, understanding compassion of a seasoned leader. He knelt slightly beside the girl, mirroring her posture, establishing an intimate connection that respected her shaken state, and placed a reassuring hand on Vala's broad shoulder, acknowledging the silent hero of the moment. The sheriff then spoke, his voice measured and clear, addressing the girl first, and then allowing his explanation to carry out into the rapt silence of the surrounding spectators. He explained that Vala's role extended far beyond standard apprehension and patrol duties. Vala, he stated, was a specialized K9, chosen for a specific inherent trait: his extraordinary capacity for empathy and intuitive responsiveness to human distress and anxiety, an uncommon, invaluable gift in a service defined by strength. Vala was trained not just for protection, to guard and defend, but to actively de-escalate fear, to use his presence and his physical actions to communicate safety in high-stress scenarios. The sheriff clarified that the gentle lean, the quiet sitting, the deliberate disruption of visual threat, these were all deliberate parts of Vala's specialized training program, designed to break through the paralysis of panic by offering immediate physical comfort and an authoritative, non-threatening source of stability. The revelation resonated deeply with everyone present. They had witnessed not a random act of dog heroism, but a precise, planned intervention based on understanding psychological vulnerability. What could have escalated into a horrifying event, a traumatic injury, a tragic failure of control, had, slowly and surely, dissolved into a moment of pure, unexpected awe, demonstrating the revolutionary power of incorporating emotional intelligence into tactical readiness. If this remarkable story of empathy overcoming instinct and fear has truly touched your heart and redefined your idea of powerful leadership, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs this hope. The girl, finally able to speak, though her voice was still tremulous, simply tightened her grip on Vala and whispered a barely audible, "Thank you." It wasn't just gratitude for her safety, it was an acknowledgement of the profound, unsolicited kindness offered by an animal that was supposed to be a symbol of force. The shared experience transformed the fairground crisis into a powerful, living testimony of compassion and understanding, proving that the deepest connections often bypass language entirely. The crowd dispersed slowly, carrying the weight of this incredible silent lesson with them. They hadn't just seen a K9 demonstration, they had witnessed a profound philosophical statement that true strength lies not always in the ability to dominate, but often in the capacity to soothe, to comfort, and to lead by example through unwavering calm, even in the face of chaos and instinctual aggression. This event challenged fundamental assumptions about law enforcement and the nature of animal training. It underscored the importance of selecting partners, human and animal, who possess not only physical prowess, but also emotional resilience and intuition. Vala had proven that the highest form of protection sometimes requires the quietest, most empathetic response, demonstrating that true authority can be conveyed simply by sitting down and offering a steady presence. The sheriff stayed with the girl until he was absolutely sure she was stable and reunited with her family, ensuring that the emotional closure was complete. He watched Vala, still patiently sitting, until the girl released her grip and with one last grateful hug was ready to walk away. Vala simply watched her go, then rose, his mission fulfilled, returning to his sheriff with the same quiet dignity he possessed when he entered the maelstrom. The experience served as a powerful reminder to every handler present and every spectator watching that the most effective intervention isn't always the fastest or the loudest, but the one that addresses the root cause of panic, the fear, with unconditional, powerful calm. It showed them that true leadership in any form often requires stepping into the conflict and replacing chaos with a beacon of unwavering serenity. And so, the terrifying crisis ended, not with a bang, but with the soft lean of a K9's head against a trembling leg, leaving behind a deep and inspiring truth. That empathy, when expertly applied, is the most formidable tool for de-escalation the world possesses. The lessons learned in that dusty fairground ring would linger, teaching that often the unexpected source of comfort is the most powerful force in our lives, leading us now to reflect on this story's greater meaning. This story is more than just a dramatic standoff. It is a profound testament to the quiet, revolutionary power of empathy in a world that often prioritizes loud, aggressive action. You witnessed how a single act of deliberate calm, delivered by a highly specialized animal, could cut through the collective, instinctual frenzy of 14 highly trained canines and dismantle the paralyzing terror of a young girl. It challenges us to look beyond immediate reaction and to seek out the deeper, more compassionate response, the valor response. Think about the moments in your own life when fear has encircled you, when you felt trapped and overwhelmed by forces outside your control. What you truly needed then wasn't a louder voice or a harder fight. You needed a valor, a steady, authoritative presence capable of sitting beside your fear and silently declaring the space safe. This is the enduring moral of the sheriff's canine, that true strength is not found in the tools of confrontation, but in the specialized training of the heart. The sheriff understood that sometimes the most effective form of protection involves providing reassurance, not dominance. This insight, that compassion can be a strategic, powerful tool, redefines our understanding of service and leadership. It inspires us to seek out and foster those individuals, human or animal, who possess the gift of intuition and the ability to stabilize chaos simply by being fundamentally, resolutely calm. Let Valor's story serve as your reminder that even in the most intense confrontations, the gentle, grounding act of presence can rewrite the entire direction of fear. Never underestimate the power of quiet authority and non-aggressive intervention. The world needs more figures who choose to lean in gently rather than lash out in panic. That lesson, forged in a moment of terrifying crisis at a county fair, is one we must carry forward.